I left my daughter with Down syndrome at a hospital in Texas. 38 years later, she returned. I was 19 years old when they placed her in my arms and told me she had Down syndrome. I looked at her tiny face, at those almond-shaped eyes, and felt my entire world collapse. The doctors said she would need constant care, special schools, expensive therapies. I was alone, broke, and terrified. So I made a choice that would haunt me every single day for the rest of my life. I signed the adoption papers 2 days later and walked out of that hospital in Houston without ever looking back. But 38 years later, a woman showed up at my door. She was holding a photograph of me from 1986, and when she smiled at me, I saw myself reflected in her face. She said, "Hi, Mom. I've been looking for you my whole life." Before I can explain how all this happened, it's very important that you like and subscribe to the channel. That will help us a lot. Only then can we continue. Our future is in your hands. Now let's get back to this incredible story. My name is Carlotta Elena Mendez, and I am 57 years old. I live in a small house in San Antonio, Texas, with faded yellow walls and a front porch where I sit every evening with a cup of coffee, watching the sun disappear behind the mesquite trees. I work as a housekeeper at a hotel downtown, and I've been doing this job for the past 32 years. Most people who know me think I'm a quiet woman, who never had children, who dedicated her life to her work, who chose to be alone. They have no idea that I once had a daughter. They have no idea that I abandoned her in a hospital 38 years ago and spent every single day since then wondering if she was alive, if she was happy, if she ever thought about the mother who left her behind. For decades, I told myself I did the right thing. I told myself that my daughter deserved better than what I could give her. I told myself that someone else, someone stronger and wealthier, would take care of her and give her the life she needed. But deep down, I always knew the truth. I was a coward. I was selfish. I was running away from my own child because I didn't know how to be strong enough to stay. This is the story of how I abandoned my baby girl with Down syndrome in a Texas hospital, and how she came back into my life 38 years later to teach me what real love and real strength actually mean. My childhood was spent in a small village outside of Monterrey, Mexico. My parents were poor, very poor. My father worked in the fields, and my mother took in laundry from families in town. We lived in a small house with a dirt floor and a tin roof that leaked when it rained. But we had each other, and that was enough. My mother always told me that life would be hard, that I would have to work for everything I wanted, that I should never expect anyone to help me. She taught me to be independent, to be strong, to never show weakness. When I was 16, my father decided we would move to Texas. He said there was work there, that we could build a better life. So we packed our few belongings and crossed the border. We settled in a small town outside of Houston, where my father found work at a factory and my mother found cleaning jobs. I went to school for 2 years and then dropped out to help support the family. I was ashamed about leaving school, but I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that education wasn't important, that hard work was all I needed. At 18 years old, I met a man named Carlos at a dance. He was handsome and charming, and he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We dated for 3 months, and then I got pregnant. When I told Carlos, he disappeared. He stopped coming to find me, stopped answering messages through mutual friends, just vanished like he had never existed. I was devastated. I felt abandoned and ashamed. But I was determined to have my baby and take care of her myself. When my daughter was born in May of 1986, I was 19 years old. I held her in my arms and cried because she was so beautiful, so perfect. The nurses cleaned her up and wrapped her in a soft pink blanket. I whispered to her that I would love her forever, that I would protect her, that nothing in the world would ever hurt her. I named her Isabella, after my grandmother back in Mexico. I thought my life had finally begun. But 2 days later, a doctor came into my hospital room with a serious expression on his face. He sat down next to my bed and told me that Isabella had Down syndrome. He explained what that meant in simple words. He said she would develop more slowly than other children. He said she would need special education, special therapies, special care. He said it would be difficult and expensive. He said many families choose adoption in these situations because they cannot handle the challenges. I felt like my heart had stopped beating. I didn't know what Down syndrome was. I didn't know what it meant for Isabella's future. I was terrified. I was alone. I had no money, no family support, no partner to help me. And in that moment, fear took over everything else. I went home from the hospital with Isabella, but I couldn't stop thinking about what the doctor had said. Every time I looked at her, I saw the challenges ahead. I saw the money I didn't have. I saw the life I couldn't give her. I was 19 years old, working part-time as a cashier at a grocery store, living in a small apartment with my parents. I was barely making enough to survive. How could I possibly take care of a child with special needs? My mother didn't help. She told me that having a baby with Down syndrome was God's punishment for my sin of getting pregnant outside of marriage. She said I had brought shame on the family. She said I should have known better. She said I had ruined my life. Instead of supporting me, instead of helping me figure out how to be Isabella's mother, she made me feel like a failure. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I was exhausted all the time. Isabella cried constantly, and I didn't know how to comfort her. I went back to work after 2 weeks because I needed the money, and I had to leave Isabella with my mother, who resented every moment she had to spend with her. I felt guilty every second I was away from her. I felt guilty every second I was with her because I wasn't strong enough to handle it. I was drowning, and there was no one to pull me out. My co-workers at the grocery store noticed something was wrong. They asked me if I was okay. I lied and said yes. I told them I was just tired. I didn't tell them that I was falling apart. I didn't tell them that I was having thoughts I shouldn't have been having. Dark thoughts about running away, about giving up, about just disappearing and never coming back. One day, after about 3 months of struggling, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment while Isabella slept. I was holding an adoption pamphlet I had picked up at the hospital. I had been reading it over and over, looking at pictures of families who wanted to adopt children with special needs. I told myself that Isabella would be better off with them. I told myself that these families had money and resources and patience that I didn't have. I told myself that I would be doing her a favor by giving her up. I don't know exactly when I decided to do it. It wasn't a sudden decision. It was more like a slow erosion of my will, day by day, until there was nothing left, until all I could think about was escape. I called the hospital and asked if there was a way to place my daughter for adoption. A social worker called me back and we talked for a long time. She was kind. She told me that I didn't have to do this, that there were resources available, that I could get help. But I wasn't listening. I had already made up my mind. I was going to give up my daughter, and nothing was going to change that. If you're watching this right now, and you've ever felt so overwhelmed by life that you didn't know what to do, please leave a comment below and share your story. Sometimes just knowing that other people have felt the same way helps us not feel so alone. And if this story is touching your heart, please hit the like button and share it with someone you love. 2 weeks later, I packed Isabella's things into a small bag. I dressed her in a yellow dress I had bought at a thrift store, the nicest thing she had. I held her close and breathed in the smell of her baby shampoo. I tried to memorize her face, her weight in my arms, the feel of her tiny fingers wrapped around my pinky. I told myself I would never forget this moment. I told myself that someday, maybe, I would find her again and explain everything. But I was lying to myself. I knew that I was probably never going to see her again. I knew that I was about to walk out of her life forever, and I was choosing to do it anyway. I drove to the hospital in Houston where Isabella was born. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the steering wheel. My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt like I was going to be sick, but I kept driving. I kept telling myself that this was the right thing to do, that Isabella would be better off, that I was being strong by making this choice. When I arrived at the hospital, I went straight to the adoption services office. I had called ahead, so they were expecting me. A woman named Susan greeted me with a sad smile. She asked me if I was sure about this decision. I said yes, even though every fiber of my being was screaming at me to say no. Susan took Isabella from my arms and asked me to sign some papers. I don't remember signing them. I don't remember what the papers said. I was in a fog, like I was watching myself from outside my body. I watched myself sign away my daughter. I watched myself hand her over to a stranger. I watched myself turn around and walk toward the door. And then I heard Isabella cry. It was a small cry, confused, like she was wondering where her mother had gone. The sound of that cry will haunt me for the rest of my life. It is burned into my memory so deeply that sometimes, even now, all these years later, I wake up in the middle of the night, hearing it. I walked out of that hospital without looking back. I got in my car and drove. I drove for hours, just driving, not thinking about anything. My mind completely blank. I told myself I had done the right thing. I told myself Isabella would be happy with her new family. I told myself that I would eventually forget her, that the pain would go away, that I would be able to move on with my life. But I was wrong. I was so terribly, completely wrong. For the next 38 years, I lived a half-life. I went through the motions of living, but I wasn't really alive. I went to work, came home, went to sleep, and repeated it all the next day. I didn't date. I didn't make close friends. I didn't let anyone get close enough to hurt me. I built walls around myself so high that no one could ever reach me. Every time I saw a child with Down syndrome, my heart would stop. I would wonder if it was Isabella. I would wonder what she looked like, where she was, if she was happy. I would wonder if her adoptive parents were good to her, if they loved her the way she deserved to be loved, if they ever told her about the mother who gave her away. On her birthday, I would sit alone in my apartment and cry. I would think about how old she was, what she might be doing, what kind of person she was becoming. I would imagine 1,000 different versions of her life, and in every single one, she was better off without me. I told myself I didn't deserve to be happy. I told myself that what I had done was so unforgivable that I would spend the rest of my life punishing myself. And in a way I did. I chose loneliness. I chose isolation. I chose a life that was small and quiet and empty. I moved to San Antonio when I was 25. I got a job as a housekeeper at a hotel, and I stayed in that job for 32 years. I never wanted anything more. I never thought I deserved anything more. The hotel became my life. The rooms I cleaned became my purpose. The guests I saw became the only human connection I had. My co-workers felt sorry for me. They could see that I was alone, that something was broken inside me. They invited me to things, to parties and dinners and celebrations. But I always declined. I always made excuses. I told them I had to work. I told them I wasn't feeling well. I told them I preferred to be alone. And eventually they stopped asking. Years passed. I aged without really living. My hair turned gray, and my face developed lines. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger looking back at me. I didn't recognize myself anymore, but I had grown used to the pain. It had become such a part of me that I didn't know how to exist without it. I thought about Isabella every single day. I wondered if she had been adopted by a good family. I wondered if they had loved her, supported her, helped her reach her potential. I wondered if she was happy. I wondered if she ever thought about her birth mother. I wondered if she hated me. I wondered if she had ever asked about me. But I never looked for her. I was too afraid. I was afraid of what I would find. I was afraid that she would hate me. I was afraid that she would reject me. I was afraid that seeing her would only make the pain worse. So I did nothing. I just carried the guilt and the regret and the longing in my heart, day after day, year after year. I thought I would live the rest of my life with this secret, with this pain, alone. I thought I would die without ever seeing my daughter again. I thought that was the price I had to pay for what I had done, and I had made peace with that, or at least I had convinced myself that I had. But then, on a Tuesday afternoon in March, my entire world changed. I was working at the hotel, cleaning a room on the 3rd floor. It was a typical day. The sun was coming through the windows, and I was folding the sheets the way I had folded thousands of sheets before. I didn't know that in a few hours my life would be transformed forever. I didn't know that the daughter I had given away 38 years ago was about to walk back into my life. I didn't know that forgiveness was still possible. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us reach more people who need to hear stories like this. And please, share this video with someone who might need the message of this story. I finished my shift at 5 o'clock and drove home to my little house in San Antonio. I was tired like I always was at the end of a shift. My feet hurt and my back ached. I had stopped thinking about the aches and pains a long time ago. They were just part of my life. I pulled into my driveway and noticed a car parked on the street in front of my house. It was a blue sedan, and there was a woman sitting in it. I thought maybe someone had broken down and needed help, or maybe they were lost. I got out of my car and started walking toward the house. The woman got out of the car and started walking toward me. She was maybe in her mid-30s with long dark hair and a warm smile. She was wearing jeans and a blue blouse, and she was holding a folder in her hands. For a moment, I didn't understand what was happening, and then something made me look at her face more carefully. She had my eyes. She had my mother's nose. She had my smile. My legs felt weak. I thought I was going to fall. The woman walked closer and she said, "Hi, are you Carlotta Elena Mendez?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded. She said, "My name is Isabella. I think I'm your daughter." Everything went black for a moment. I had to grab onto my car to keep from falling. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Isabella was standing right in front of me, after all these years, looking at me like she had been searching for me her whole life. I managed to say, "How did you find me?" She held up the folder and said, "I have papers from the adoption agency. They give information to children when they turn 18, and I've been looking for you ever since." I felt tears streaming down my face. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't find any words. I wanted to hug her, but I didn't know if I had the right. I wanted to tell her I was sorry, that I had thought about her every day, that leaving her was the biggest mistake of my life. But all I could do was stand there, shaking, tears pouring down my face. Isabella looked at me with such kindness in her eyes, and she said, "Can we talk?" We went inside my house and I made tea. My hands were shaking so badly that I spilled some on the counter. Isabella sat at my small kitchen table and placed the folder in front of her. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me, studying my face like she was trying to memorize every detail. Finally, she said, "I want to know everything. I want to know why you left me. I want to know who you are. I want to know the truth." So I told her. I told her about being 19 years old and alone. I told her about her father disappearing when I told him I was pregnant. I told her about my mother's cruelty and my own fear. I told her about the day the doctor said she had Down syndrome, and how that one sentence had broken something inside me. I told her about the hospital, about signing the adoption papers, about walking out without looking back. I told her about the cry I heard as I left, the cry that had haunted me for 38 years. I told her about the guilt, the regret, the shame. I told her that not a single day had gone by when I didn't think about her, when I didn't wonder if she was okay. And I cried. I cried for the daughter I left behind. I cried for the years I wasted feeling sorry for myself. I cried for the pain I caused her. I cried for the time we could never get back. Isabella listened to everything I said. She didn't interrupt. She just let me talk. And when I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. She said, "I want to tell you about my life. I want you to know who I became." And so Isabella told me her story. She told me about growing up in an adoptive family that loved her deeply. She told me about her parents, Margaret and David, who accepted her just the way she was. She told me about the schools she went to, the therapies she received, the support she had. She told me that her parents had taught her that Down syndrome was just a part of who she was, not something that defined her. She told me that she had graduated from high school. She told me that she had worked at a grocery store for 5 years. She told me that she had learned to live independently, to take care of herself, to navigate the world. She told me about her friends, her hobbies, the life she had built. And as I listened to her, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was grateful that she had been loved. I was grateful that she had been cared for. I was grateful that someone else had given her the chance that I was too afraid to give her. But I was also filled with regret. I realized that I had missed everything. I had missed watching her grow up. I had missed being there for her. I had missed the chance to be her mother. Isabella squeezed my hand and said, "I spent a lot of years angry with you. I spent a lot of years trying to understand why my own mother didn't want me. I went to therapy. I asked a lot of hard questions. And eventually, I realized something." She paused and then she said, "I realized that you didn't abandon me because there was something wrong with me. You abandoned me because you were scared. You abandoned me because you didn't have the resources or the support you needed. And I realized that I could be angry about that for the rest of my life, or I could choose to forgive you. I started crying again. I said, "I'm so sorry, Isabella. I'm so sorry." She said, "I know you are, and I forgive you." Those 5 words changed my life. I had been waiting 38 years to hear them, without even knowing it. I had been carrying so much guilt and shame, so much regret for so many years, and in that moment some of that weight lifted. It didn't disappear completely. I don't think it ever will, but it became lighter, more bearable. I looked at my daughter sitting across from me at my small kitchen table, and I couldn't believe she was real. I couldn't believe that after all these years, she was here. She was sitting in my house, looking at me with compassion instead of anger, with understanding instead of judgment. I had spent so many years imagining this moment, wondering what I would say, wondering if it would ever actually happen. And now that it was here, I still didn't have the right words. I said, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Isabella. I left you. I abandoned you when you were only a baby. I signed away my rights to you and walked away without looking back. I thought about you every single day for 38 years, and I never once tried to find you. I never once reached out. I was too much of a coward to face what I had done." Isabella reached across the table and took both of my hands in hers. Her hands were warm and strong, and I felt the strength flowing from her into me. She said, "Mama, I spent a lot of years being angry. I spent a lot of years asking myself what was so wrong with me that my own mother didn't want me. I went to therapy for years trying to work through that pain. I had nightmares about being abandoned. I had moments where I felt completely worthless, completely unlovable." She paused, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. She continued, "But Margaret and David helped me understand something very important. They helped me understand that your decision to leave me had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with you. They helped me understand that you were a scared young woman who didn't have the resources or the support you needed. They helped me understand that sometimes people make choices they regret, not because they don't love their children, but because they're overwhelmed and terrified and don't know what else to do." I listened to my daughter speak, and I realized that she had done something I never thought was possible. She had found a way to forgive me. Not because I deserved it. Not because I had somehow earned it through suffering or sacrifice, but because she was a bigger person than I was. Because she had learned to let go of the anger and bitterness that was consuming her. Because she had chosen healing over hatred. Isabella squeezed my hands and said, "I'm not forgiving you so that you can feel better about what you did. I'm forgiving you because I deserve to be free from the pain of holding on to anger. I deserve to not carry around this weight of resentment anymore. And I realize that by forgiving you, I'm really forgiving myself. I'm releasing myself from the idea that there was something wrong with me, something unlovable about me, that made my mother not want me." I was sobbing now, deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep inside my chest. I had never cried like this before, not when I signed the papers at the hospital, not in all the lonely years that followed. But now, looking at my daughter, feeling her forgiveness wash over me, I finally let myself break completely. Isabella got up from her chair and came around to my side of the table. She put her arms around me and held me while I cried. She didn't say anything. She just held me and let me cry. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. I felt the beginning of healing. Not complete healing. Not the kind of healing that would erase what I had done. But the kind of healing that comes from being loved despite your failures, despite your mistakes, despite the terrible choices you made. After a long time, my tears finally slowed. Isabella pulled up a chair next to me and sat down. She pulled out some tissues from a box on my counter, and we both wiped our faces. We sat there in silence for a while, just breathing, just being present with each other. Finally, Isabella said, "I want you to understand something. Forgiving you doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It doesn't mean pretending that the pain wasn't real. It doesn't mean that everything is suddenly okay between us. There's still a lot to work through. There's still a lot of pain from the past that we need to process together." I nodded. I understood. Forgiveness wasn't a magic wand that would erase the past. It was a choice, made every day, to let go of anger and resentment and move forward. Isabella continued, "But it does mean that I'm choosing to see you as a human being who made a mistake. It means I'm choosing to believe that you were doing the best you could with what you had at the time. It means I'm choosing to give you a chance to know me, to be part of my life, to build something new with me." I looked at my daughter, and I saw so much maturity in her eyes, so much wisdom, so much love. I said, "I don't know how you became such an incredible person, Isabella. But I'm so grateful. I'm so proud of you. And I promise you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the mother you deserved from the beginning." Isabella smiled at me, and it was the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. She said, "That's all I'm asking for. That's all any of us can ask for. Just try. Just be present. Just let me into your life, and let me be part of yours. If you're still watching this, I need you to know something. Please leave a comment below and tell me what you think about this story. Do you think forgiveness is possible after something this terrible? Do you think I deserved a second chance? Your thoughts and perspectives mean so much to us." That night, Isabella stayed for dinner. I made a simple meal, nothing fancy, just rice and beans and some chicken I had in the freezer. But as I was cooking, I found myself wanting to make something special. I wanted to show her that this moment mattered. I wanted to show her that I was grateful. So I made some of my mother's recipes from Mexico, recipes I hadn't made in years. I made chiles rellenos, the way my mother used to make them. I made fresh tortillas. I made a simple salad with lime and cilantro. As I cooked, Isabella sat at the kitchen counter and talked to me. She told me about how she had found me, about the research she had done, about the adoption agency that had given her my information when she turned 18. She told me about the private investigator she had hired to help track me down. She told me about the moment she found my address, and how she had sat in her car for an hour before finding the courage to knock on my door. We ate dinner at my small kitchen table, the same table where she had offered me her forgiveness, just a short while before. And as we ate, we talked for hours. We laughed. We cried. We shared stories about our lives, about the people we loved, about the struggles we had faced. Isabella told me about her job at the community center, about how much she loved working with people. She told me about the programs she helped run, about the children with Down syndrome that she worked with, about how she tried to help them believe in themselves the way Margaret and David had helped her believe in herself. She told me about her apartment, about how proud she was to have made it her own. She told me about her dreams, about wanting to help other people with Down syndrome navigate the world, about believing that she had something valuable to contribute. I listened to my daughter talk about her life, and I felt so much love for her. I felt so much pride. I felt so much gratitude that she had survived my abandonment and become this beautiful, strong, compassionate woman, and I told her about my life. I told her about my job at the hotel, about the rooms I cleaned, about the guests I saw day after day. I told her about the small apartment I had lived in for so many years, the apartment that had never felt like a home because it was always empty, always lonely. I told her about the loneliness, about how empty my life had been. I told her about how I had punished myself all these years for what I had done, about the way I had isolated myself, about the way I had chosen a life of solitude because I didn't believe I deserved anything else. But as I told her these things, something shifted inside me. As I watched her listen to me with compassion and understanding, I realized that maybe I did deserve a second chance. Maybe my punishment had been enough. Maybe it was time to let go of the guilt and the shame and start to live again. At the end of the night, Isabella said, "I don't want this to be the last time I see you. I want us to build a relationship. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I want to try." I said, "I would like that more than anything in the world." We exchanged phone numbers. We made plans to meet again the following week, and when Isabella left, I hugged her. I held her for a long time, trying to make up for all the hugs I had missed over the past 38 years. Over the next few months, Isabella and I started building a relationship. We met once a week. We talked on the phone. We slowly started to know each other. Not as mother and daughter, but as two people with a complicated history who were trying to find a way forward together. I learned so much about her. I learned that she was smart, thoughtful, kind, and resilient. I learned that she had overcome challenges that would have broken many people. I learned that Down syndrome had never stopped her from pursuing her dreams, from loving deeply, from making a difference in the world. And Isabella learned about me. She learned about my childhood in Mexico. She learned about my struggles in America. She learned about the fear and shame that had consumed me for so many years. And slowly, she started to understand that I wasn't a monster. I was just a scared young woman who had made a terrible choice. One day, about 6 months after Isabella first showed up at my door, she said something that made me cry all over again. She said, "I want you to come meet my parents. I want Margaret and David to know you. I want them to understand where I came from." I was terrified. I thought they would hate me. I thought they would blame me for abandoning Isabella. But Isabella assured me that they were kind people, that they would welcome me, that they understood how complicated this situation was. So I went. I drove to their house in Austin with my heart pounding in my chest, and when Margaret opened the door, she surprised me. She hugged me. She actually hugged me. And she said, "Thank you for giving us Isabella. She is the greatest gift of our lives." I broke down. I cried in her arms. And she held me while I cried, not saying anything, just holding me. David was kind too. He shook my hand and said, "Isabella is a remarkable woman, and we're grateful that you had the courage to make the choice you made, even though I know it was difficult." I spent the afternoon with Isabella's family. We had lunch together. We talked and laughed. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was part of something. I felt like I belonged somewhere. It's been almost a year now since Isabella first knocked on my door. A year since my past caught up with me. A year since I was given a gift I never thought I deserved. Isabella and I now see each other every week. We have dinner at my house or at hers. We talk on the phone when we can't see each other in person. We're building something real, something honest, something that goes beyond the pain of the past. Every time I see her, I feel like I'm living in a dream, like at any moment I'm going to wake up, and find that she was never really there. But she is real. She is here, and she is choosing to be part of my life. The first few months were the hardest. Neither of us knew exactly how to be around each other. There were moments of awkwardness, moments of silence where we didn't know what to say. There were moments when old pain would surface, when she would ask me a question about why I left, and I would have to face the terrible truth of what I had done. There were moments when I could see the hurt in her eyes, the hurt that came from being abandoned by her own mother, and I would feel that guilt crushing down on me all over again. But slowly, week by week, something began to shift. We started to find our rhythm. We started to develop inside jokes. We started to learn each other's habits, each other's preferences, each other's ways of moving through the world. I learned that Isabella drinks her coffee with too much sugar. I learned that she loves old movies, especially romantic comedies from the 80s. I learned that she's terrified of spiders but refuses to kill them, insisting on capturing them and releasing them outside instead. I learned that she hums when she's concentrating, little songs that she makes up on the spot. And Isabella learned things about me too. She learned that I'm a perfectionist when it comes to cooking, that I remake a dish 3 times if I'm not satisfied with it. She learned that I cry during sad movies, no matter how many times I've seen them before. She learned that I love to read, that I spend my evenings with books, traveling to different worlds because I was afraid to travel in my own. She learned that I talk to myself when I'm alone, that I've spent so many years being solitary, that being around another person still feels strange sometimes. I've changed too. I've become more social. I've made friends at work. There's a woman named Rosa who works with me at the hotel, and we've started having lunch together in the break room. There's an older woman named Patricia who cleans the rooms next to mine, and we've become friendly, sharing stories about our lives. I've joined a book club at the library. I've started volunteering on weekends, helping people fill out paperwork and teaching them how to navigate government resources. I've started to live my life instead of just existing in it. I've stopped punishing myself for what I did. That's not to say the guilt is gone. It's not. But I've learned to hold it differently. I've learned to acknowledge what I did without letting it destroy me. I've learned to accept that I made a terrible choice when I was young and scared, and that I cannot change that choice, but I can change how I move forward from it. I've started to believe that I deserve happiness, that I deserve love, that I deserve to be part of Isabella's life. Not because I've earned it through suffering or sacrifice, but simply because I'm human, and I deserve to experience the fullness of life, just like everyone else. A few months ago, Isabella did something that surprised me. She brought me a photo album filled with pictures of her growing up. There were pictures from her childhood, from her graduations, from vacations with her family. There were pictures of her at work, at parties, at celebrations. She said, "I want you to know my life. I want you to see everything you missed." I was afraid to look at that album. I was afraid that seeing all those moments I wasn't part of would be too painful. But Isabella sat next to me on my couch, and she guided me through every single page. She told me the story behind each picture. She told me about the day she graduated from high school, how her parents had thrown her a party, and how proud she had felt. She told me about the camping trip when she was 12, how she had been terrified of sleeping in a tent but had done it anyway, because she wanted to be brave. She told me about the day she got her first job, how nervous she had been, how her supervisor had taken a chance on her, and how she had proven that she could do the work. I looked through that album and felt so many emotions all at once. I felt sadness for the years I wasn't part of her life, for all the moments I missed, for all the celebrations I wasn't there for. I felt profound sadness for the baby girl I left at the hospital, who grew up without her mother, who had to figure out who she was without me. But I also felt gratitude for the people who were there for her, who loved her, who helped her become the remarkable woman she is. I felt gratitude for Margaret and David, for stepping in and being the parents that I couldn't be. I felt gratitude for the teachers and counselors and friends who supported her. I felt pride in who she had become, pride that despite being abandoned by her birth mother, despite having Down syndrome in a world that often doesn't understand it, despite all the obstacles and challenges she faced, she had become this beautiful, strong, compassionate person. At the end of the album there was a blank page. Isabella pointed to it and my heart skipped a beat. She said, "This page is for the memories we're going to make together, for the future we're going to build." I looked at that blank page, and I understood what she was saying. She was giving me a chance to be part of her story going forward. She was saying that even though I couldn't change the past, even though I couldn't go back and be there for those moments in the album, I could be there for the moments that were coming. I could be there for the future. I could be present. I could be her mother, in the ways that mattered now. I looked at my daughter, at her beautiful face and her kind eyes, and I felt something shift inside me. I felt hope, real, genuine hope that I hadn't felt in decades. I knew that even though I couldn't go back and change the past, even though I couldn't erase the pain I had caused her, I could make a different choice now. I could choose to be present. I could choose to show up. I could choose to be her mother in the ways that mattered. We started taking pictures together. Every time we saw each other, Isabella would pull out her phone and ask for a selfie. At first, I was reluctant. I didn't want to see myself smiling next to my daughter, feeling like I didn't deserve to be happy. But Isabella insisted. She said, "We're making memories now, Mama. We're building our album." And so we did. We took pictures at the dinner table. We took pictures at the park where we went for walks. We took pictures at the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, where we would shop for groceries and then go back to one of our homes to cook together. We took pictures at the community center where Isabella worked, where she introduced me to some of the people in her life. With each picture, I felt more real, more present, more alive than I had felt in decades. Isabella started bringing those pictures to print them out and add them to that blank page in the album. She created a whole new section titled Our Story, with pictures of us together, starting from that first day she showed up at my door, all the way through the present. She wrote little captions under each picture, describing what we were doing, what we talked about, what we were feeling. When I looked at that section, I saw a story of redemption. I saw a story of forgiveness. I saw a story of two people learning how to be together after decades of separation. One day, Isabella surprised me by printing out one of the pictures we had taken and framing it. It was a picture of the two of us at the park, both of us laughing at something someone had said. We're both looking at the camera, and you can see the joy in our faces, the connection between us. She gave me the frame and said, "I want you to put this somewhere you'll see it every day. I want you to remember that you're not alone anymore. I want you to remember that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." I put that frame on my nightstand, right next to my bed. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I see is a picture of my daughter and me, laughing together, present together, building something real together. And every night before I go to sleep, I look at that picture and I remember that my life has changed. I remember that after decades of punishment and loneliness and isolation, I was given a second chance. And I'm not taking it for granted, not for a single moment. I've started thinking about the future in a way I never did before. Isabella and I have talked about traveling together. We've talked about going to Mexico so I can show her where I come from, so I can introduce her to the family there who might still be alive. We've talked about her teaching me things, about me teaching her things. We've talked about that a life that extends beyond the pain of the past, into something new and hopeful. I'm doing this not because I think I deserve it. I'm doing this because my daughter has given me a gift, the gift of her presence, the gift of her forgiveness, the gift of a second chance. And I will spend every single day, for the rest of my life, being grateful for that gift. I will spend every day trying to be the mother I should have been, from the beginning. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to keep doing for the rest of my life. Because love, I've learned, is not just about the past. Love is about the choices we make every single day. Love is about showing up. Love is about being present. Love is about letting the people we've hurt know that we see them, we value them, we cherish them. And that's what I do every time I see my daughter. That's what I'm going to do for every moment we have left together. I'm telling this story because I want people to know that it's never too late to try to make things right. It's never too late to ask for forgiveness. It's never too late to change, to grow, to become a better person. And it's never too late to love the people we've hurt, even if they don't owe us that love. Isabella gave me a second chance, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. Please like this video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and watch another story when you're ready. Because everyone deserves to be heard, and everyone deserves a chance at redemption.